On the night of June 27th, 1946, Ivy Griffiths was dropped off by a taxi just a short walk away from the home she shared with her mother. Within 15 minutes, she was murdered. A crazed madman, a person who knew her, or mistaken identity. I'm Kat Park, and join me with your favourite tipple as we unfold the details of this grisly and brutal case of Ivy Griffiths Unsolved in the Murder Wine Club. The year is 1946. The date, the 27th of June. The location, Staffordshire. It's been 9 months since World War II ended. A newspaper costs 3.5 pence, and rationing, in particular bread rationing protests, are hitting the headlines. Ivy Griffiths is 33 years old and has been living with her mother at 34 Arnold Grove, Port Hill, for the past 12 months, since separating from her husband, Samuel Griffiths. She has just started a new job as a cleaner at Marsden's, a local tailor's in Newcastle-under-Lyme. The time is 7 p.m, and Ivy leaves her home to meet Stanley Chadwick at the Star Pub in Marsh Street, Hanley. Ivy has only known Chadwick for 5 to 6 weeks since meeting him in the street, and they have been meeting regularly for drinks since. There is nothing different or unusual about tonight. After last orders are called, the couple book a taxi to take Ivy home, sharing the taxi with a soldier and his girlfriend. Ivy is dropped off at Port Hill Church at 11 p.m, ready to take the 13-minute walk back to Arnold Grove. She is reportedly in good spirits and unfazed by her regular walk home. By 11:15 p.m, Ivy is dead, strangled, kicked and beaten multiple times, just 100 yards from her home. It was a story that shocked a tight-knit community. Because of its frenzied and brutal attack, it left women feeling afraid to go out after dark, unless accompanied by their male companions. So, what do we know about the night? We know that she met up with her husband Samuel Griffiths, a bus driver, who was now living in Stafford some 20 miles away. Although it was an amicable separation, the husband and wife hadn't seen each other for 3 weeks. Samuel later told detectives that he had come to the area by car to pick up a motor part, and had picked Ivy up close to her home at approximately 4:45 p.m. They had sat in his car for an hour chatting, and according to Samuel, it was a friendly chat, with Ivy saying, "Well, I'll be seeing you again." Her husband was aware that Ivy was meeting up with a young Chadwick, a 24-year-old barge emptier, that evening, and he left her at 5:45 p.m, where, as far as we know, Ivy went straight to her home at 34 Arnold Grove to get ready to go out that evening. This was the last time Samuel Griffiths would see his wife alive. At 7 p.m, Ivy left her home in Port Hill to make the journey to Hanley, some 3.5 miles away. There she and Chadwick enjoyed a few drinks until last orders, which was approximately 10:30 p.m. Just after, the couple booked a taxi to take Ivy home. Chadwick would accompany her. As their taxi started to pull away, a soldier, John Leese, and his 17-year-old girlfriend, Doreen Ingham, hailed it down and asked if they could share it. Doreen had missed the last bus home to Newcastle-under-Lyme and was worried about an 11 p.m. curfew. At 11 p.m, according to Chadwick, Ivy was the first to get out of the taxi at Port Hill Church, Watlin's View, to start her 30-minute walk home. This was the last time that Ivy was seen alive. Chadwick, Lise and his girlfriend then carried on to Newcastle to drop her off. Both men then returned to Hanley and went their separate ways. Meanwhile, Ivy was walking her normal route to the semi-detached home that she shared with her mum, a route she always took which led her across the wasteland at the back of her house. It would have been dark and quiet. Not very much is known about her movements after leaving the taxi party, but it is thought she walked a shortcut, and it was on this path, and 100 yards away from her home, that her attacker took his or her first violent blow, hitting her on the head multiple times, strangling, then rendering her unconscious, and for the final blow, kicking her to death, leaving her battered and bruised body on the wasteland. The beating was so frenzied and violent, her ear and one of her teeth were found 5 yards away, her face swollen, blooded and bruised. The grisly discovery. It is now just after 5 a.m. and Fred Hughes is on his way to work at the Petroleum Board. His route takes him across the wasteland between Arnold Grove and Bradwell Lane. He's taken his time as he has a poorly leg. Walking along the path, Fred notices a handbag lying on the floor. He bends down to pick it up and happens to turn in the opposite direction and sees Ivy's blood-splattered face in the grass, lifeless. He rushes to Port Hill Church where he knows there will be a police presence and reports the find. Motive. No motive could ever be established for Ivy's murder. Her handbag and valuables including a gold chain and a heart-shaped brooch were not stolen, albeit strewn across the path. There was no sign of sexual assault as her clothes were fully intact. One chilling line of inquiry came a few days later after the murder when a woman came forward to say a soldier had organised an appointment to meet her at the wasteland at the very same time as Ivy was attacked. She had not kept the appointment. The chilling thing here was that the woman was the same build and height as Ivy. Was this a case of mistaken identity? The suspects. Over the next few months, the police made many lines of inquiries. Both Samuel Griffiths and Stanley Chadwick were eliminated from inquiries. Police theories ranged from an escaped lunatic from a local asylum to someone who knew her, to a Canadian soldier stationed in the area, to a woman attacker, to a local resident. The investigation moved to different parts of Staffordshire and Cheshire, even further afield to the south coast and northwest of England. Interestingly, the one theory that seems to have stuck is the description of a man seen running away from the scene of the crime 15 minutes after Ivy was murdered. He was described as aged 30, 5'8" to 5'10", of slim build with thin features. He was clean and had an athletic appearance. He was wearing a light-coloured raincoat and trousers, with a dark jacket and waistcoat. His trilby hat was turned down at the front, and he wore black shoes. It was highly plausible that the assailant knew of Ivy's habits and routines, and on the 1st of July 1946, police released a statement announcing that they thought the assailant had been there at the exact same time and day a week before. Residents on the Bradwell estate had reported a man wearing a dark suit and a bowler hat or trilby sitting on a strip of land close by to where Ivy would be found. It was unusual for anyone to be sitting on the wasteland at that time of night. The strip was at the back of the row of houses where Ivy resided. Was this man spying on Ivy, watching her every move, plotting his vicious, manic attack? Another line of inquiry involved two people sleeping in a car the day before Ivy's murder. A resident of the estate walked past them at 6 a.m. He described the scene as two people asleep in the corner of a car with a blanket over them. It was odd, as the registration of the car was local. Why were two local people sleeping in a car? Had the registration plate been from further afield, then he would never have questioned it. Later that afternoon, the same resident was approached by a man with sandy-coloured hair. He looked strange and seemed confused, asking where the different roads led to. The witness reported that it seemed that he had no idea of where he wanted to go. Were the occupants of this car related to the Ivy Griffiths case, or just innocent travellers who had lost their way? Ivy's funeral took place on the 4th of July, and over 2,000 people finished work early and lined the street to pay their respects to her cortege. The majority of them were women, but police took this opportunity to mingle with the crowds in the hope that the assailant would have returned to watch his handiwork. That night, police held a night vigil at the wasteland, where Ivy was savagely beaten to death. They believed that the killer could be of a fixed habit and kept a secret rendezvous at the scene, checking all people and cars that passed. Throughout the investigation, police would often say they were close to an arrest. The investigation took lots of twists and turns, but sadly no arrests were made, and on the 2nd of October 1946, a verdict of murder against some person or person unknown was returned by the jury. With no more leads to go on, the police finally gave up the chase. 75 years on, we are no closer to revealing who Ivy's attacker is. Many questions remain unanswered, such as, how did the killer get away with it? The district was busy with people going on night shifts. The light up on that evening was at 10:42 p.m, and it would have been reasonably light. At around about that time, people were also returning from the cinema or pubs and would have walked past Ivy's body lying in the cold of night. The question on everyone's lips, though, is who killed Ivy Griffiths? Who stole the life of this lovely, quiet lady with the rest of her life ahead of her? We may never know, but I truly believe that 75 years on, someone, somewhere, holds the key to this mystery. I would love to know your theories and thoughts on this. Why not pop over to my Facebook group, the Murder Wine Club? The link is in the show notes below, where we can top up our glasses and discuss our suspects list and more details of the case.